Hey, we're back with Three Chords and the Truth, another edition this week. We got a good one for you, too. I'm the host, Pete Kramer and the Eastwood Project. Unfortunately, our good friend Alex was not able to be here tonight because he is also a volunteer fireman, very active in the department, and he had some meetings that he had to be at tonight. But just want to remind everybody, Alex is a founding member of the Noblemen. They're Buffalo's rock and country band, and watch for them. They play out. Finally, able to start playing out again. Right over here at Master Control, I got my good buddy Sebastian DeJesus, who's not on camera, but I can actually touch his shoulder just by going over there like that. He's also the host and producer of the 42 North 78 West Sports Show. Had a really cool show last night. Former Buffalo Bill was on Stevie Johnson. I watched the show. It was really sweet, and it's a growing show. Again, I always like to mention my friends at Special Spaces. We had the luxury last week of having Lynn and Bev, and then a pop-up surprise from Peggy, who runs the Boca Raton chapter. Special Spaces, if you're not familiar with them, they redo bedrooms for children with terminal illnesses so that they can enjoy the time that they are going to be resting in bed with the things that amuse them the most. And I've never seen a reveal yet that the kids weren't absolutely enthralled with what they've done. They do some great work. As always, leave a comment, give us a like, subscribe to the page so that you can get reminders for future shows. And one of the new features that we've got with this new format that we've gone to is that you can actually type in a question to whoever the guest is that we have on, and it can be read live on air and can be answered live on air. So don't hesitate to do that. Now, tonight, this is why I say this is such a cool show. This gentleman has been around in the Buffalo entertainment, all phases of Buffalo entertainment for a very long time. I don't think he wants me to say how long, but I'll let him say it if he wants to. I'm not going to go into his credentials because he's got such a great biography. It's just so much cooler to just let him talk to it. So at this point, let's welcome Mr. Rick Falkowski. Hello, Rick. How you doing, man?
Hey, nice to be on the show with you.
Glad to have you here, man. You got a hell of a story to tell. And I hope we can fit it all into about 40 minutes because there's just so many things that that you've done. So why don't you take us from where you started to where you are today?
Well, you said before that maybe I don't want to say how long I've been involved.
I did say that.
I'll take the Fifth Amendment. I really, I don't know anything about entertainment, No, truthfully, I always say that I was involved in entertainment before I was born, because really on my mother's side of the family and my father's side of the family, one side was drama, the other side was music when they were living in Europe.
Okay.
So came here to the States, and I wasn't put on stage until I was maybe about 5 or 6 years old. My father put me up playing timbales at some little club, who knows where, And I actually started playing guitar before the Beatles. Okay, so I can't say that I started playing guitar because of the Beatles, but of course I'm Polish, so I had to play accordion first. So I took accordion lessons from Edwin's, and that gave me the right background.
Oh,
and then I bought all my equipment at Art Kuberas, like a good Polish boy. But I actually started playing in bands before I was in high school. I was
really?
Still in 8th grade. And it was fun because that was the days of the teen clubs. There were places to play all over the place. You could be a kid, 14, 15, 16 years old and be able to play, every weekend, and make some money doing it too, which is amazing. And back then, the drinking age was 18. So you could be 14, 15, 16 years old and already be playing in the bars.
Yep.
All you had to do is have good false proof. And I had an excellent sheriff's kid. One of my friends at school's father was the chief of police in Tonawanda. So that sheriff's card I had from him was great. We're past the statute of limitations, so I can say whatever I want.
Exactly.
In fact, then it was still the Sloan Police Department. So, that's so long ago. Most people here listening probably might not even know what Sloan is, but it's part of Cheektowaga and it's surrounded by railroad tracks. Okay.
Well, yeah, a couple of things that you just said, Edwin's music store, Art Cabrera's music store, and, the Sloan. I remember all that stuff, and I haven't heard some of those names in many years.
Mm-hmm. The good old days, like I say. That's when you had, like, the teen clothes back then. You had the peppermint stick.
Yep.
Okay, out in Tonawanda, you had Club Commodore on the east side. You
Yep.
had the Volcano, you had the Cave. In Blaisdell, you had the Pit. And I was in a band then called the Wildcats, and we used to play at the Pussycat Club on Main Street in downtown Buffalo.
Oh yeah.
Next door to one of the original Mike Submarines. And I still remember a salami sub, the whole sub was 39 cents. It was great. We'd take a break, go get some subs, and, have a good old time.
Well, it was funny because Dave Beanick was on a couple of weeks ago, and he, I knew the story prior to him being on the show, but you guys kind of grew up in similar neighborhoods, and he was telling me about when he was with the band Court, I think it was. He says, we used to play at Dirty Dick's Bath Club. Could you imagine having a club that name today?
And what's funny is Dirty Dick's became the original Trafalgar.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Right in the corner of Main and Fillmore.
Yep.
No, Dave and I went to Kennedy High School together. I was a year after him. I graduated in '69, and I think he graduated in '70.
Okay.
And what's funny, who's not a real small school, graduating class like about 200. But I really didn't get to know him until, when he was like in Cock Robin, years later.
Right.
But he told me a funny story about when we were in high school. And since he was on before, some people might get a kick out of this, is in our senior play, they said to me, Rick, would you like to have a good part in the senior play? And I said, sure, but you got to get a haircut. And I says, well, it better be a good part or else I'm not going to get a haircut. And so I got my haircut and I ended up having the lead in the play. Well, I told that story to Dave, and Dave said, that's something, because in 1970, they wanted me to have the lead in the senior play. And they said, but if you want the part, you got to get a haircut. And I told them to go to hell, so I was never in the play. So I don't know who was right and who was wrong, getting a haircut or not getting a haircut. But I think I held the record for the number of times getting kicked out of Kennedy because my hair was too long.
Well, that's what we did back then, man.
I got a kick out of one time. I got my hair cut, for the play. And my dad came home, and I was sitting in the living room playing piano. And he walks in the back door, and he drops his lunch pail. Your dad always used to have the lunch pail that he took to the factory and everything like that. Yeah. And he looks at me sitting on the piano and says, what the hell happened to you? I said, Dad, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to get my hair cut. And he says, but that's how you make your money. So I'm supportive parents, so that was a little bit better.
It's kind of funny because a couple months ago, I wrote this song called 1976. That's when I graduated from high school. And Sebastian is doing a video of that song for me. And it's all out of my high school yearbook. And it's just like, holy crap. You look back and you see what the hairstyles were back then. It's just, I wish we could go back to that. Sorry. Somebody's calling me to see if I want a car warranty.
Or was it your Amazon account and you got to give them your credit card number?
Of course I would do that. Wouldn't everybody?
If you ask me my credit card number right now, I'm not going to give it to you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I was going to, but since you said that, I guess. Anyway, so let's go back. Now, I think at one point you mentioned to me that you were playing in a bunch of bands and then you went into the service.
Yes. They started something called the lottery for getting drafted during Vietnam. And the first time they had the lottery, I actually went out and got loaded out of my mind because I got number 364. I was ecstatic. I said, I'll never get drafted. Well, I found out that was only for 19-year-olds and up, and I was 18. So next time they had a lottery, I had number 6. So I was left with a couple choices, and I decided the Air Force was the best bet. And I'm glad I did. I really enjoyed my time in the Air Force. I spent 2 years in Germany, 2 years in Texas, and I actually kicked myself in, for not staying in sometimes when I think back, because it was a fun life. And it was enjoyable. But then again, I was in the Air Force, so I didn't do anything. I think I wore fatigues 3 times the whole time I was in service.
Well, what year did you go in?
71 to 75.
Okay. And what?
So I was in during Vietnam, but I was in Europe, not in Asia. So I was very, very lucky. I had a lot of friends that were in Vietnam, and my heart goes out to them. Proud of them for everything that they did. We can say that now. If you'd have said that in 1970 something, you couldn't have been proud of what the people were doing.
Yeah.
It's totally different.
They don't get the recognition they deserve.
No.
Absolutely. No. But okay, so 71 to 75, you said?
Yep.
So from the time that you went in, obviously you weren't going to be able to do too much in local music at that point because you were gone. What changed between that time that you were gone, if anything?
Well, from when I came back, before I went into the service, I was mentioned Wildcats. I was also in a group called Pharmacy Jones. We opened for Bob Seger. I was in a group called Blue Avenue. We opened for Spencer Davis. I was in the original New Breed. We won KB Fun Affair. So I was playing in bands. I actually fell asleep during my SAT because I was playing 5 nights a week during my senior year of high school. And so when I came back, the music scene was totally different. It wasn't as great as it was with all the different places.
Okay.
And the 70s, at that time, the music was it was either progressive and it was starting to go into disco and it was commercial rock. It really didn't have its place. But right when I came back from the service, I didn't do anything with music immediately. I went back to college, got my degree. And then like in the late 70s, I started playing again. And my wife and I had a group together. We played all the, hate to say it's a disco clubs. And we did a lot with the female vocalist, Linda Ronstadt, Fleetwood Mac, along that line. And of course, all the Bee Gees stuff and Saturday Night Fever. But I was a keyboardist, so I didn't mind disco because guitarists were bored to death. Drummers are just playing, 16th notes all the way through. But the keyboards, I had to play the horn parts. I had to play the string parts. I had to play the piano parts.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. In fact, my dad was a drummer, and he said to me, Rick, when you go into music, if you decide to become a musician, become a piano player. And I said, why's that, Dad? He says, you just walk in with your sheet music. I'm the drummer. I'm the first one there, and I'm the last one to leave. I complained to my father all the time because I had my Hammond organ, my Fender Rhodes piano, our Pauli synthesizer, another monophonic synthesizer. I had to buy a Dodge van just to carry my equipment around. And my dad said, become the piano player. No, things changed that way too. So we enjoyed doing all that stuff. We had 2 sons. One was born while I was in the service. 79, my daughter was born. And my wife and I decided we didn't want to play in bands anymore. So I started a booking agency, Backstage Productions with Dave Buffamani. And we were booking bands around all over the place. And for some reason, Marcia and I got the idea we wanted to start a newspaper. And because there was nothing really promoting the bands. Gusto wasn't even there yet.
Right.
Gusto didn't exist. So we decided in April of 1981 to start Buffalo Backstage Magazine. And anybody from back in them days remembers Buffalo Backstage, was what we did back there. It was a paper that really focused everything on the music. Our calendar was even by band name, not by club, And it was a lot of fun doing that. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. We had no idea. In fact, I only failed one subject in high school, and that was English. And here we are writing articles and everything like that. No, I also got a bad mark in band because they called me listening to the Yankees Dodgers World Series when we were supposed to be practicing. But to me, Sandy Koufax on the mound against Mickey Mantle was a hell of a lot more important than playing timpani. Okay. But we started that, and then after we had that going, we says, why don't we do something to honor the musicians of Western New York? So we came up with the idea of having a Buffalo Music Awards. And everybody said we were crazy because our advertisers were the clubs and the bands and the management companies and the booking agencies and everything like that. He said, you do music awards, some people win, some people lose. And I said, well, it doesn't matter. It's very important to honor the musicians. So in 1981, it was at Rooftop Sky Room. We had the very first Buffalo Music Awards. I sent you a poster of it. I don't know if you have any of them things around here, but we didn't know how it was going to go. And we ended up drawing over 1,000 people on a Monday night.
Wow.
And that was back in the days when everybody had music 7 days a week. Well, and because of the show, Stage One didn't even have Chalice playing there on Monday. That was their steady night there. So they even canceled it, for that day. And Harvey and Corky were really involved, and great job we do with the music awards.
Yep.
So Harvey tried to buy it off me. And I said, nah, I'm going to keep it myself. And he tried running his own music awards at Stage One, but it wasn't the same. It was a club running awards, not an independent person running an awards. So I actually beat Harvey Weinstein at his own game. I know he can't hear this because, I think where he is right now, he doesn't have access to video.
Well, I got to back you up for 1 second, because as you were talking, there was a couple things that came to mind. First of all, your publication that you put out, it was kind of funny because there's a good friend of mine that we're playing and recording with right now. His name is Gary Pancho. And he came over the other day when we get together every Friday afternoon and try to lay down as many tracks as we can. He brought in a copy of that publication because the band that he was in at the time was nominated for the best blues band in Buffalo. And he told me, he says, I remember Rick Falkowski coming over, interviewing me with this. And he says, what a nice guy he was. So there you go. There's a little plug for you on that.
Well, that was many years ago. And I noticed how you emphasized what a nice guy he was.
Well, no, that's what he said, because that's at the time that he met you.
Oh, so you're not admitting that? No, okay.
I'm taking a fifth on that one, man. But no, there's something else that you said too that I thought was, and I've talked with other people on this show about that, because like you said, there was music 7 nights a week all over the place. And, there was plenty of places that you could go to, and it didn't matter if it was Tonawanda, Lackawanna, Lancaster, you name it. There were big places, had, the Taluses, the Cock Robins, the Fat Brats, you could go to any night. You could go see whatever band you wanted to see. You paid like $1 to get in. A picture was, I think, $5 maybe at the time. Maybe not even that much.
I think it was like $3.
Okay, yeah, you're probably right. But it was like everybody was making money, and all of a sudden it just all went away. And it might have been Pat Terry, I think, that maybe said it. That he says, well, I think a lot of that changed when all of a sudden they changed the drinking age from 18 to 21.
Well, they actually changed the drinking age from 18 to 19 and from 19 to 21.
Right.
And that happened during the 80s. In fact, I actually met some people that became legal 3 times. And, like what you're talking about, all them things, shameless plug right here. There we go. Here's my music book, History of Buffalo Music and Entertainment. And what you're talking about with all these clubs, I have like a chapter on the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. And I list all the clubs that existed back then. And, talked about all the different places that you could go to. Like you're saying, it was amazing. A club owner could open a club back then and not know what he was doing and have a lot of business. Today, if you open a place, you better know what the hell you're doing, because if you don't, you're going to be out of business within a month. And that's even pre-COVID. It's changed so much. And I think that's one of the reasons why classic rock is so popular still in the Buffalo area, because there were so many musicians back in the 70s and 80s that got the opportunity to play on a regular basis. And that's the music that they were playing, the 60s, 70s, and 80s music. Yeah. So a lot of the musicians are still around. Whereas kids today, where can they play?
Yeah.
You're going to play a battle of the bands at Broadway Joe's or something like that, or a little place like Stamps and NT. There's not that many places for the kids to play, So I don't know. It's a dismal thing for music. The only thing I like about music with the kids today is the kids are learning a lot more about big band music inside of high school. You got some really good teachers in the high schools that are teaching the kids what music was all about.
Yep.
The golden era of composition and everything like that. Harold Arlen, Irving Berlin. There was great music. We hated it when we were kids because that was our parents' music. But now at least the kids are getting exposed to it because they're learning. That's what you got to grow up with. It's the only good thing about today for kids. Yeah.
Well, I was going to bring up your book a little bit later on, but since you did, why don't you talk a little bit more about that? And you've got 2 out or 3 out and 1 in the works?
Something like that.
Something like that.
Okay, no, but going back, like you said, you were going to bring it up a little bit. I only showed the book because it totally went along with, what you were saying. With what the clubs were like.
Yeah.
In fact, I got like a 4-page spread in here of every club that existed during the 60s, 70s, and early 80s. And it's like, it's fun just looking at that. It's worth the price of the book just to look at the club thing and say, I remember that place. or I don't remember being there, because that was usually the case when we went to places back then. But anyways, so I ended up, we did the paper for a number of years and stuff like that. And I wanted to get involved in other things with music and entertainment. I was lucky enough to get a job working for a company. Well, I worked for ASCAP for a number of years, American Society of Authors, Composers, and Publishers. So I was involved in copyright law. And the cable company came up with a brand new product called digital music. And I said, what the hell is digital music? Well, they approached me to come to work for them to introduce Digital Music Express to the Western New York market, because I was working for ASCAP at the time. And so I was lucky enough to have my full-time job really within the music business, because I did DMX and I did internet and phone and everything with the cable company. But I always said that I was going to write a book about the history of music, because somebody has to do it before everybody forgets. In fact, I was going to write that book with a person by the name of Dale Anderson, who everybody might remember. He was the person that did Gusto. In fact, Dale and I were talking this morning about stuff. You should have him on the show. He's got so many stories about the old days. Okay, but
I'd love to. I'd love to. I remember the name when you and I were talking on the phone the other day, and you mentioned that name. I'm like, yeah, I know him. He's from the Buffalo News.
Yeah, and so him and I were going to do the book, and he said, "Nah, Rick, I'm too busy," because Dale's still working for the Buffalo News full time.
Right.
He's the only person I know that is getting full-time Social Security, a full-time pension. He has a full-time job. So
nice gig.
Yeah, nice gig. But he loves what he does. That's the thing. He's the city desk editor now. So he's enjoying what he's doing with everything like that. So when I retired, I said, what am I going to do? So I started giving talks about music for Erie County. And I said, God, years ago, I talked about writing a book. In fact, one of my accounts when I worked for the cable company was Canisius College, and they had Canisius College Press. So they thought it would be great to do a book on Buffalo music history. So I wrote up a whole synopsis of the book, covering all the chapters and everything like that, and I gave it to Canisius College, Father Higgins and Father Lynch, for any Canisius graduates out there. And they ended up choosing another book. They ended up publishing a book called Mansions of Delaware Avenue, which is really one of my favorite books ever written about, all the big houses and popular families from Buffalo. So I found my notes and I started writing this book. It took me like 2.5 years, and I cover everything from Canal Street in the early 1800s through like legitimate theater and such during the later 1800s, brass bands, which was really the main type of entertainment back then, going into Michael Shea opening his vaudeville theaters and burlesque theaters and all the Shea theaters in downtown Buffalo, the Basils, and all the other people. I cover all the amusement parks. So everything's covered in here. Plus I cover the jazz bands from the 40s and the 50s, the 50s bands, rock and roll groups from the early 50s, and 2 different types of 60s. There was like an R&B 60s in Buffalo, and there was a teen club bands in the 60s.
Sure.
So I actually got a separate chapter on each one. And then the 1970s, and then a chapter on commercial music, a chapter on country, a chapter on ethnic, no matter what kind of music somebody liked, no matter what type of entertainment you cared about, is covered in here. In fact, when I was done, the book ended up being 430 pages.
Wow.
But everything, every era, every time period is covered in here.
That's amazing.
And it makes me feel good because now at least everything's documented. But somebody told me a problem that I have because of this. He said, Rick, if you made a mistake, everybody's going to think it's fact because nothing else is written about it. I do want to take back there were a couple other books written about Buffalo music, which are really good books, but they didn't cover the full gamut and all the different styles of music and everything like that. So this was the first one to do that. And then after I wrote that book, I was doing talks at libraries, community centers, different organizations, car clubs and everything like that. So many places you can talk, even it's like senior citizen homes, which is really a rewarding experience. I know a lot of musicians that play at senior homes now doing acoustic stuff. And it's really a good feeling, doing something for the people that are there, even though I think I'm a senior now myself, but we don't want to talk about that. But so I said, I want to do another book. What can I do a book on? So I said, well, when I was a kid growing up, I always liked history. why don't I write a history book? In fact, I wanted to be a history teacher when I went to college. And they said, no, we don't need any history teachers. And I said, well, okay. So I got a degree in business and psychology and worked in business all the time. That really hasn't changed because my one son got a degree in history. And he got a job teaching in North Carolina. And when he got there, they said, oh, we're so glad to have you, getting these teachers in from New York. You're going to teach math here, right? And he says, no, I'm going to teach history. But we don't need any history teachers. We got too many of them. You're from
Really?
New York State. You're from New York State. You're a math teacher because people in New York are good in math.
Jeez.
And Keith looked at him. So, oh, okay. Well, what did he do? He came back. He taught there for a couple of years. He came back to Buffalo, and guess what? He couldn't find a job as a history teacher. So he got a second degree in math, and now he's been a bird guard for 20 years teaching math. But anyways, I said I got to write this book because the other thing in school, in 5th grade and 11th grade, you're supposed to learn about local history. They don't learn anything about local history. So I came up with the idea of writing a book called Historic and Influential People from Buffalo and Western New York.
Okay.
That book was going to be everybody. Well, I started writing the book, too many damn historic and influential people from Buffalo and Western New York. So the first book I wrote ended up being the 1800s. And so this book, it moves. Okay. This covers 100 people profiled from the 1800s, the people that founded Buffalo, the first attorneys, this person named Angela Keppel who talks about the streets of Buffalo, because all the streets are named after famous people. Mm-hmm. So you're going to read this book and you're going to see a whole bunch of names and say, oh, that's where that street came from. Oh, there was a bus tie. Okay. It was so interesting, the things I found out, like, do you know that Wells Fargo and American Express were actually started in Buffalo?
No.
I never knew that. You think they were started in New York or Chicago or San Francisco or something like that, but they were actually started right in the city of Buffalo.
That must have been so cool to do.
Oh, doing the book was such a riot. So after I finished that, I said, I'm going to write a book now in the 1900s. So I started working on it and researching everything. And in March of 2020, the ceiling fell down. And I was doing 2 or 3 presentations at places a week, and COVID happened, and I couldn't give talks anymore, and I couldn't even get a hold of people to talk to them about a book. Nobody was in the mood to really talk about anything. We were just in the mood to figure out what's going to happen. What is this?
Right.
So I'm finally finishing up that book, and once again, the same thing happened. The book that was supposed to be the 1900s is going to be the early 1900s. And that book is going to be out probably September or October of this year. And then after that, I'm going to be doing the late 1900s. And after that, I'm going to be doing the 2000s. Then after that, I might do athletes. And after that, I might do actors. So I've made a pact with the big guy up there. And I think I have to live for like about another 30 years to be able to finish all the books that I want to do. And I just hope he follows through on that, because it'll be over 100.
So if somebody wants to buy one of your books, where do they go?
They're available at all the bookstores in Western New York. They're available at the gift stores. Nationally, they're available on Amazon. You can also go to my webpage. Webpage is real simple, buffalomusichistory.com.
Cool. Okay.
And you can get them there. But it's selling well. I'm surprised, because like I said, I got really bad marks in English in high school. And then, I got kicked out of the band for listening to the Yankees and Dodgers game. And I write a book about, Buffalo music history and then also history. And then you even called me a best-selling author when we said we were on here, and that flabbergasted me. I hope my accountant doesn't know about that. And I can attest for this, the IRS will, no. They'll confirm that I'm not a best-selling author. But it's fun. I did this because this was my retirement project. And It's like I started a whole new life after. Still doing things with music. They'll be going into a different subject, but, it's so enjoyable. I feel like Colonel Sanders, because Colonel Sanders started Kentucky Fried Chicken after he retired.
Yep.
So I'm doing the same thing. All I wrote was business correspondence all my life. I did a lot of writing, yes, but I did write for the paper and stuff like that, but, still doing things with music. is we got the Tonawanda Harbor Gateway concert series.
I was just going to bring that up next.
And I think you have something about that which you wanted to put up. Should I say something about it first, or do you want to do that?
Well, we can do both. I mean, we got a video that, I asked Rick if there was something specific that he wanted put up, and he said, no, there's all these different things. How long has that been going on?
Well, that's what I was going to say is I was working for, well, then it was Delta Cable.
Yeah.
And the guy who was the chief engineer ran Canal Fest.
Okay.
And I'm an East Side and North Towns person. I'm not a Tonawanda person. I wasn't back then. I didn't even know what Canal Fest was. And then a friend of mine took me to see Gateway Park. And I said, what are they doing with this? And he says, nothing. So I says, well, why don't they start a concert series here? So the friend of mine, Larry, who ran Canal Fest, introduced me to the mayor of Tonawanda and North Tonawanda. And we started the Gateway Harbor Music Series back in 2002. So this is really like the 20th year,
Wow.
with one less that we've been having it. And what I did is I based it off of what Thursday in the Square used to be.
Yeah.
Before they went to the national acts.
Right.
Back when like Lance Diamond used to close it all the time, and the Goo Goo Dolls still used to play there when they were still the Goo Goo Dolls, not the Goo Goo Dolls. And so it's 2 Buffalo area bands every Wednesday. We got a professional stage. We have a professional sound system. We have between 2,000 and 4,000 people every Wednesday night. And it's the place to go on Wednesdays.
Let's give
it's a lot of fun.
Let's give everybody a little flavor of that because, Rick told me about grab a video off of the YouTube page or whatever. Well, that made me go to Dave Bienick because we all know Dave. And so he sent me this cool thing that he added some pictures to as well. So I'll shut up and let let Sebastian roll the videotape on this.
I'll be quiet too.
Okay. All right. There we go.
We've got time for one more for you. Thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. We do appreciate it. We do love it. Thank you all. Jethro Tull. Shuffling my house, all the
That's the kind of thing you can expect down at the Gateway concert series, and you could tell everybody's there, everybody's having a good time. We kind of turned the volume down a little bit because we've only got so much time left to be able to talk with Rick. Rick, you want to give another plug for your book? What's the website that they can go to get your book, man?
Okay, my website is buffalomusichistory.com.
Okay.
And there's information there on both of the books. The first book's the music book. That's like 400 pages covering all the different styles of music. The history book, it's like a 300-page book covering just the 1800s. The book's also available at all the bookstores that are left around the Western New York area, your larger gift shops. Two of my best places for selling a book is because it's pro-Buffalo. Is the Buffalo store and Totally Buffalo. It's Scott Solani and his wife run over in Sheridan, Niagara Falls Boulevard area.
Okay.
And I also sell the book at Gateway. If you come there, I always have some copies laying around.
Okay.
And I'll be doing a lot of talks again starting after summer.
Yeah,
You
let's
know,
hope. Let's hope we get back to normal again. This is getting a bit crazy.
I got little bit of time left to say something about getting back to normal.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, that's the thing that we did with Gateway. What we decided is we have our entire schedule together. We booked the entire schedule. And we don't have the OKs. We don't know what the restrictions are going to be or anything like that. But our feeling was we have to do it regardless of what happens, simply because people are starved for music. People want live music again.
Yep.
You know, so we said we're going to have these concerts one way or another. And yesterday I heard some very, very encouraging news. A lot of people might not have heard this because it's one of them side things. The state of Connecticut at the end of May is getting rid of all restrictions. So there's not going to be any face masks. There's not going to be any size restrictions for events. Connecticut touches New York.
Mm-hmm.
And so that makes me feel our concerts are going to start in the middle of June. We started with the street dance on the 12th of June before all that. And I feel by Memorial Day, we'll have freedom to do everything. There might be some restrictions. After July 4th, I'm expecting to be back to 3,000-4,000 people a night.
Good.
You know, and that's when we're going to be having, you know, people like Nerds Gone Wild, Stoneflower, West of the Mark, Coda, Hit and Run, Chicago Authority. You know, the bands that draw 3,000-4,000 people because they only do big events.
Yep.
You know, so I'm actually thinking we're going to have a great summer this year. And if you notice, the places that are not being held, things like the Allentown Art Festival, they can't control the area. Whereas we have 4 entrances to Gateway. You know, you look at that entire area, there's only 4 ways to get in. So that's why I think we're going to be able to have everything. And live music will be back. And I hope other places also do what we did and schedule all the live music that they can for the summer.
You know, one thing I think is pretty cool because like we talked about a couple minutes ago about how there used to be all these places where there was live music every night of the week. I'm seeing more places opening up because they're looking for live bands. And if you think back to when the recession hit in 2008, 2009, there were places that they only wanted you to come in and do an open mic night. And I had one club owner tell me, he says, I don't care if you're the goddamn Beatles. If you can't sell beer for me, I got no use for you. You know, so I think that's encouraging to see that there's more venues opening up that are looking for, they're willing to pay for, you know, the musicians to come in because, you know, I mean, the old adage about, you know, what you're going to pay for a plumber versus what you're going to pay for a musician. I'm sure you've seen all those things and how long it took the musician to get to where he was versus a plumber taking a 6-month course or something. And I got nothing against plumbers. It was just the, you know, the comparison between the two. And they just figured, well, we should get the music for free because a lot of people put a lot of work into that craft and they don't realize how much goes into having learned it to begin with, but then to drag all the stuff to the gigs, the rehearsals that go on before that, there's a lot of work.
Well, one thing that people aren't thinking of, which is also a good thing coming out of COVID, is places that are having entertainment right now for your better groups are charging admission. People are not adverse to charging admission. At one time, people wouldn't want, like you said, the early days, everybody would pay to get into a club. You had a good band, you would pay $1 or $5 to be able to get in.
Yep.
Then everybody wanted to get in for free. And so band pay hasn't gone up. You know, you're making $75 a night right now, usually if you're playing. And that's the same thing that you were making back in 80s.
Yep.
You know, and so I'm hoping that this continues and people are going to be willing to pay for the good bands, not every band.
Right.
For the bands that take all the time to put into doing everything, they're going to be willing to pay an admission for that. Because when we started the music awards, there were A, B, and C bands.
Right.
And you knew if you were an A, B, or C band, depending upon where you played. You were an A band if they charged a good admission when you played.
Yep. Yep.
And then B bands were like your smaller clubs, and C bands were your corner bars. Well, it got to the point that everybody was the same because everybody was like a corner bar band. They weren't charging admission any place. So I'm actually hoping that changes so that the good groups can be making $1,000 a night, you know, for the whole band.
As well,
and
they
then
should.
We can do more of a show.
Yep.
Because look at when the Beatles started. The Beatles were great. But what did the owner of the club in Hamburg say? Mach Show. And what does that mean? Make show. If you don't have a show, you don't have anything. The Beatles had the vocals, Lennon and McCartney sang as good then as they did after, but they were putting on a show. So people will be able to put on these shows because they'll be getting more money. That's my hope. Music could get better in the near future.
Well, and here's something else, Rick, that I was, I've had this conversation with several people because there was another place that I was talking to the owner of the place, and he said that, he expects the band to bring in a following. Well, a good band is going to have a following, but I mean, the only way that he was going to hire them if he could guarantee that many people for a night, there's no band that can do that. And I thought to myself, that is the most insane thing I ever heard. That's like hiring a chef and expecting the chef to fill up your dining room for you. That's insane. All you can do.
It's a two-way street. The club has to advertise and have the reputation so people know to go there to see live music. The band has to be known. They have to have a following. They have to promote themselves. If both sides don't work together, nobody's going to make money.
Yep. And that's what it's all about.
With what's happening with COVID, I think everybody's going to work harder so that whenever anybody plays, it's going to be an event. I'm actually worried. I shouldn't say this, and I don't know if you play this over and over again where people can see it, but I'm just worried that people are going to be so excited that Gateway's going on. We're going to have too many people. We're going to have 1,000 people on the other side of the canal in Tonawanda. We're going to have 500 people on the bridge going from Young Street over to Main Street in the Tonawandas. It's going to be a good problem, though.
But here's something else that's good that is coming out of the COVID thing is that, I know so many people, myself included, that when the whole COVID thing was going on, I would go on and just play a Facebook Live thing for a half an hour or something, just because I was actually doing things for little kids. There's some of these things that we've written and played together, the big, heavy, sounding rock and roll things. And here's me singing, "The wheels on the bus go round and round." But, it was to make sure that people weren't losing their minds because they weren't able to go anyplace. But I think that there's going to be more things that will, yes, there'll be hopefully 4,000 or 5,000 people that show up at Gateway. But hopefully somebody else is going to be broadcasting it on Facebook or YouTube that other people that aren't able to be there can also see it. And there should be a way to monetize that, I would think.
Mm-hmm. And like I'm saying, we're not allowed to charge admission at Gateway because we're actually on state property. Where Gateway is actually part of New York State because it's part of the Erie Canal system.
Oh, really?
Right. So we can't charge. Like at Grantwood Park, they can charge for parking. Because that's on the Niagara River, so that's not state land, that's City of North Tonawanda land.
Okay.
And so I'm actually thinking of saying we're going to have to ask for donations and hope that people give them.
Yeah.
Because what people also don't realize, if you want to put on a big show, you want to put on something that's really good, it costs a lot of money to do it.
Of course it does.
It costs us $5,000 to put on a Gateway show.
Wow.
Because you have band costs, sound costs, stage costs, security costs, insurance. The first year that we had Gateway, my entire budget is what we have to pay per year now just for insurance.
Wow.
And people don't realize some things. So I'm hoping that people realize you want a good entertainment, you got to pay admission. They'll be willing to give a donation.
Yeah.
To help us because I hate to say it, we can't get a lot of sponsorship money because the businesses just don't have it yet.
Oh, no, they don't. Absolutely.
They're still behind because of COVID. Luckily, we have Catholic Health Systems, and Kenmore Mercy is a very big sponsor, and we get something from them. But that covers this much of our cost.
Wow.
Even though they're a big sponsor. So anybody out there who's listening to this, tell everybody it's not cheap to put on these shows.
Oh, yeah. No, I get it. I totally get it. All right, we're just about out of time. Anything else that you want to add before we have to leave?
No, I had a fun time. You said this is going to be a real relaxed, sit back, talk about things, and I had no idea what to expect. But this was fun.
I didn't lie to you, did I?
You didn't lie to me. And I took the fifth at the beginning because I wasn't sure.
No, but yeah, make sure that check out where you can find Rick's book and stuff like that, because if you dig history at all, because I certainly do, so we've got the first one is all about the history of music in Buffalo, 400 plus pages. The second one is famous people from Buffalo in the 1800s. Correct me if I'm wrong in any of this, Rick. And then the third one that's in the mix right now is the 1900s, and it's all about Western New York and the cool people that have come from here.
And my goal is to get these books into the schools so that all the kids in Western New York can learn everything about Buffalo. When I do a talk, I say three things. I'm going to tell you about things that you don't know. I'm going to tell you about things that you've forgotten. And when you leave my presentation, you're going to be proud to be from Western New York. That's what the books do.
That's fantastic. I just, again, get Rick's book and stuff like that. It's been really cool chatting with you, man. I've absolutely enjoyed it. I've learned an awful lot. And next week we've got another Buffalo Music Hall of Famer, Marty Peters, is going to be on with us. So that's going to be kind of cool. And unless you got something else to say, Rick.
Well, thanks, everybody. Look forward to a lot of live music this summer. And we're coming back to, depending upon how you want to say it, normalcy or normality.
Hey, Rick, please come back and see us again sometime.
Will do. Okay, when I get my new book out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. As soon as that's ready, let's do that. Yeah,
I'll see you in the fall, but I'm going to see you at Gateway this summer. You got to come there.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't miss it, man. Wouldn't miss it. Okay, I'm Pete Kramer for 3 Chords of the Truth, and we are out of here. Thanks so much for watching us.